Welcome back, Knuckleheads. I am Lupine Fiasco. This is Daily Fab Gameplay. Today we are debriefing the Los Angeles Calling. If you've been watching my videos over the past week and a half, then you know that I have been eagerly anticipating Los Angeles, playing in the Calling, just the general event overall. You know that I was hopeful that I would win the Calling, and if you've been following the results, you know that that didn't happen. That said, it was an awesome event. I had a great time. I live in California, so traveling to a Los Angeles event was a no-brainer. I don't even have to leave the state. It was an hour flight from Sacramento, where I live, and I saw Bay Area people, SoCal people who are even further north in California than I am. So just a great time all around, seeing familiar faces, getting dinner, going for dessert, generally just jamming games with people that I don't get to see all that often. As you can see from the background here, as a very exciting announcement, I am part of Team Metal Fab Tokens. So we are a brand new team. The Calling Los Angeles, the Pro Tour, just the general Los Angeles event was our first showing as a team, and I need to give big shout outs to my teammates Patrick Cahill, Peter Bedenzik, and Majin Bay for their incredible finishes across the weekend. Patrick, only run very noob on YouTube, came in 37th in the Pro Tour. Peter hit top 8 in the Battle Hardened, and Majin Bay, who we all know and love, got second place in the Calling after quite the ordeal, which you can hear him tell on his channel very soon. As for me, I was the side event signature and vendor king. I was not competing in the PT this weekend, so my Friday was dedicated to collecting cold foil energy potions, getting artist signatures on my Phi and KO cards, and generally just hitting vendors, trying to convert some of my trade cards, things that have been rotting in my trade binder for a while, into brute foils. So after the weekend, happy to say my Blood Rush Bellows, my Beast Withins, my Scabskin Leathers, and my Swing Bigs are now all members of my shiny cardboard. The EV for the weekend was insane. Cold foil energy potions, I'm expecting to go way up. We saw a few spoilers for Part the Mistveil, including a set of new heroes. Based on some spoilers more recently, we can pretty much anticipate that the Mystic heroes are going to be the inverse of Draconic, where Draconic really cares about red cards, Mystic will really care about blue cards. So picking up a playset of those shiny epots just feels really great. Feels like I'm going to save a ton of money in the future if I do decide to maybe give Zen a try. And I just generally like shiny things. So overall, incredible weekend for me socially, for my investment portfolio in this game, and for just the bling in my decks. Talking about the Calling, which was really my main event, the result was not so good. After 5 rounds, I dropped with a record of 2-3, really not where I wanted to be for the weekend, and I have some general thoughts about that specific result and that specific event, and I'll talk about some more overall thoughts as far as moving forward into ProQuest season, into possibly San Francisco Battle Hardened, and definitely into Nationals. So we'll start there. I know that is the real meat and potatoes of these tournament reports. My matchups were a little hit and miss for me. Starting in round 1, I played what I think is possibly one of the best games of Flesh and Blood I've ever played, speaking from a perspective of my own personal play. I thought I played this game really well. Round 1 was against Prism, and this was the most disciplined Flesh and Blood I have ever played. My first 2 Blood Rush Bellows were both met with Arclight Sentinels, and rather than Scabskins really go for it, I just clawed the Arclight and passed. And I know Boulder players would roll the Scabskins. If you hit the 4, 5, or 6, the turn is insane. Statistically, you are likely to hit 4, 5, and 6. 50% of the time you win the game, 33% of the time you come out net neutral, and 16% of the time you just lose the game. That said, my prism did present gambler's gloves, so my odds of rolling a 1 at a critical moment were a lot higher than they usually would be. But I felt like I was just on it. That discipline really paid off. I've had enough reps into the prism matchup that I had a good sense of which auras needed to be broken compared to which auras I could let sit. So I never did see a Genesis, but Parable of Humility, Passing Mirage, even Pierce Reality, I was very diligent about breaking those, making sure that they were going to get off the board. But something like an Ode to Wrath, we can let that sit there. We don't need to waste a claw on that if we are properly controlling the prism's board state. I was good about anticipating really what a prism might have as far as lowering the attack power of my defending cards, throwing armor in front of Herald of Triumph if I knew that I needed prism to not get a Figment for that particular attack, or if I needed to keep her off of Soul. But I also knew that this game was going long, and as prism is defending my attacks, she is giving up blocking cards and steadily drawing her way into non-blocks. We were on turn 7 or 8, and prism had not seen a Tome of Divinity yet, so I knew that they were coming. I knew that Figments were coming because I was not allowing prism to tutor them out. She did see her Erudition Figment, but that was really it. And eventually, I was able to find a Agile Windup to discard on my prism's turn. On my turn, pitch a blue for Runner, then activate Tunic for CNC. And that really put a tie on the game, put a bow tie on it. It did not kill prism that turn, but stripped her hand, and the next turn was able to get there with Swing Big with Go Again. So it felt just incredible about that game. Like I really was just on it. Game 2, I lost to Dash.io. This is not a matchup that I have any experience with. It is not a matchup I felt really like I needed to prepare for, or even that I had anyone to prepare against. I don't know with any confidence that really bit me in the ass. It was a very skilled opponent, had really worked on the deck in anticipation of playing against KOs, and their deck rewarded them with some really solid draws. I think the only mistake I made in this game, which we talked about after the match, is that after winning the die roll, I chose to go second instead of first. Going first in this matchup would have been correct, but going second did set me back. That said, their first turn was set up playing a few items, including Mini Force Field, which was the hot spice in the deck. Turn 2, they came in with a 20 damage maximum velocity turn. Turn 3 was a 30 damage Teclo Pounder heist boosting nonsense turn, and turn 4 was another 20 damage turn. So I don't know that I could have ever played against that. I did have Cast Bones in my deck, which was also a mistake. I really can't give Dio any room to breathe, but even without it, I didn't see a Blood Rush Bellow. I was not drawing the Go Again that I needed to really apply proper pressure. So this might honestly be one of those games that I could play 100 times and lose every single one of them. We talked about Scowling Fleshbag after the match, and the one opportunity I had to get value out of it was on my opponent's 5-card hand when they open with Twin Drive Double Boost and they have the maximum velocity in Arsenal. So maybe my Fleshbag is getting more value than it ended up getting. It did not get a whole lot, but it isn't like it would have kept them off of max fee. So that might have just been one that I was always going to lose. Game 3 put me into a KO mirror. This KO presented Beaten Trackers, which to me said Berserk build, and also Balance of Justice rather than Scowling Fleshbag. So that was an interesting decision. It was a very close game. I lost the die roll and did have to go first. That said, I had good disruption. I had a solid Cast Bones turn. The Cast Bones reveal let me chain Command and Conquer into Send Packing, and was just generally able to string together Command and Conquer, Send Packing, Humble to keep KO off of a 5-card Berserk that they could really feel good about. Ultimately, we did get there off of the second pulping. A first pulping for lethal did draw and discard a Cast Bones, which allowed my opposing KO to survive and put me in danger. The second pulping did get me there. So I felt good about that. I'm in the 2-1 bracket, moving into round 4 against Kano. This was a solid Kano matchup. I know this player. He is a NorCal local, so we run into each other at ProQuests and Road to Nationals. I did beat him in this last RTN season, so this was his revenge match against me. This was really a failing of my deck, I would say, more than anything else. I was not teched for Kano. I think as KO, we have 2 options on how to deal with Kano. We can either present a Go Again package with a lot of action points that either keeps Kano off of being able to activate the hero and safely establish a board by throwing a ton of damage at them quickly, or we can go for a mid-range package that plays AB3, Spell Void 1, and Oasis Respite. And I chose a middle ground, which did not have Go Again or Oasis Respite, and this really showed its detriment when my turn cycles were really like AB3, pitch 3, attack for 6, pass. Really not applying any pressure. Kano was able to find 3 energy potions in the first 5 turns of the game, which let him put together a massive double wildfire turn that killed me from 35, despite pitching 11 resources into Arcane Barrier that turn. So I really just wasn't fast enough and I wasn't durable enough. Having Oasis Respite on the go-off turn would have, if not won me the game, at least preserved me through that turn, very likely winning the game, as Kano would have broken the Stormstriders and the Ragamuffin's hat. Having Go Again would not have necessarily won me the game. I can't say that definitively, but I do know that it was a style that I was more comfortable with and I think would have been a lot more effective. So being 2-2, going into round 5, I played against my final opponent of the day, a Labaya, who ended up getting a very close win. We both had a slow start, but neither of us got good fleshbag value. Really just a very low value game for both of us. I think my Labaya maybe drew a little better than I did at critical moments in the game. They resolved 3 Blood Rush Bellows and 2 Art of Wars, compared to my 2 Blood Rush Bellows and no Cast Bones. The biggest problem that I had was the inability to push them past the point of being able to flip into Blasmafet. They did take 5 damage from Blood Debt in order to flip, so it isn't like they had the cleanest flip turn. It wasn't like I put them to 14 and then couldn't go any further. So I did get some value from that Blood Debt, but it took me a few turns too long to get them to the point of needing to flip, so they were able to build up a Banish Zone that was quite effective. I had some very lucky breaks in this game. Tear Limb from Limb that should have been 16 damage whiffed on the discard, so the follow-up was not very good. A Dread Screamer banished 3 misses out of a discard pile that had 90% hits. So I really did get a lot of lucky breaks throughout the game, but my deck just wasn't able to deliver. I think that was a failing of the list and perhaps a failing of me realizing how I should be playing this deck and sort of the Blood Rush turns that I need to put together. But being 2-3, I decided to drop rather than play out the rest of my rounds from day one. I want to talk about why, just briefly. I know a lot of you might think, well, these are good competitive experiences, you could still go ELO positive, why drop out? And for me, the answer was, for one thing, side events give shiny cardboard, and that's what I'm all about. There was an energy potion event later that day that I was able to secure a cold foil E-Pot. There was a separate classic constructed event even later in the afternoon that gave me prize ticks that allowed me to buy a cold foil mite token from the prize wall. It's overall just better value from playing those events than from playing out my last 3 rounds at the calling. But more than that, I just wasn't really happy with my deck. And that gets us into kind of my specific thoughts about why this calling didn't go well for me. Sort of at the recommendation of my teammates, I started playing a new list rather than the one that I had been practicing for 2 weeks prior. This list was really geared towards a mid-range plan, so a lot less go again. There were no yellow wild rides, no yellow pull things, no enlightened strike, and in their places were red clash, yellow clash, runner. And the idea of the deck was block out, set up your agility, play efficient 2 and 3 card hands with Spring Tunic, and wait until you find that Blood Rush Bellow. So kind of the small Rhinar. And I think that would have worked really well against warriors and ninjas. I unfortunately did not see any of those. My losses were to either aggro decks or wizards, where having all that go again would have been a lot more helpful than being able to block because I was not running clashes into Kano or Leviat. But sort of my failing, I don't want to put this all on my team or say that they gave me a bad list. The list was fine. This was more me failing to recognize who I am as a player. And that is, I want to reference Naruto here, the Naruto manga. If you've read it, there was a specific chapter early on where one of the characters, Rock Lee, is described as being a genius of hard work. And what that means is, at least in the context of the story, he sucks at doing the cool ninja stuff. He doesn't pick things up very quickly. He is sort of unimpressive generally, but what he does have is this work ethic and this determination to get really, really good at the one thing that he knows. And I apply that to me because I am not the sort of player who is good enough to see a new deck, get a few reps, and play at a level of competency that would take me far in a calling. For me, I need a lot of time with a deck to learn how to play it and to learn the nuance and to determine what I'm supposed to do and what a good turn looks like. And I felt that I had that with the KO list that I had been playing up until this last Wednesday. And by pivoting over to this new list with a very different game plan, I really put myself at a disadvantage that I didn't have the reps. I didn't know what a win against most of my opponents would look like, and that really set me up for failure. So the takeaway for me is not to not trust my teammates or to take the word of the people I work with as far as you haven't run a lot of Clash of Agility, but Clash of Agility is really good. For me, the takeaway is I need to lock in my deck list like 2 weeks ahead of the event. Play that, get to a level of competency, and then have faith in myself that my reps, my experience, and the level of competency will compensate for maybe a superior list. And we did see this in the last calling I played at and hit top 32 with Phi, where Phi was disadvantaged in Alexi meta, but I had experience with the deck, and the experience is what carried me through. So I think if I had been working with the same KO list that I felt good with, I may have done a little better. Moving forward, ProQuest season starts in 2 weeks. There is a Battle Hardened in San Francisco a week after that I may or may not be going to. June has me playing in the United States Nationals in Minneapolis. I have a lot of work to do. Nationals is a little too far out to know exactly what that looks like for me. We have an entire new set coming out between now and then. For all we know, I may end up being a Zen gamer, or maybe new looks really strong and I want to try that out. But at least for ProQuest, I will be working with Peter Ward's second place Pro Tour KO list with some small adjustments. As I learned, Peter did not have access to Command and Conquer, which is why it wasn't in the list. And I think while there is an argument to be made that the Brute type line is stronger than Disruption when we are trying to put these big Blood Rush bellow turns together, I also think that Command and Conquer for 7 with Go Again is one of the most degenerate phrases that exist in Flesh and Blood, and I want to be able to say that in my game. So I've made a few small changes to fit 3 Command and Conquer into the list. I will be making other adjustments as needed as I find them, but for the most part, that's what I'll be playing on Talishar and in person with friends throughout the next 2 weeks ahead of ProQuest season. I also think that I need to put more focus on preparing for my local meta, especially in ProQuest. The NorCal community is really strong. We have a strong group of Flesh and Blood players, but not too many of us play Runeblade, for example. So I don't need to have a plan necessarily for Viserai or Vinset. Not a lot of us play Wizard. Now, Majid Bey is a member of my local community. He lives in Sacramento and plays at the same stores that I do. So while I don't necessarily need to have dedicated sideboard slots for Wizard, I don't necessarily need to expect Wizard in every round of my event. I do need to know that if I want to win a ProQuest, I'd better have a plan for Wizard, because very likely there will be an extremely skilled Kano player at my top table. My local meta is Heavy Warrior, Guardian, Brute is highly represented, so I need to know what the Brute mirror looks like. What does the KO mirror look like? How does that differ from playing against Leviah? We don't have a lot of Dawnblade Dories, but we do have a lot of Hatchet Dories, so I not only need to have a plan for that, but when I sit down against my opponent and they present Dorinthia, I can expect this is Hatchets, we're not going to board like it's Dawnblade. So these are small things that I need to incorporate into my own play. But sort of larger than that, based on some really, really good advice from Patrick, I need to treat every game I'm in like it's the Pro Tour Finals. I have a tendency, especially on Talishar, to approach games with sort of a lackadaisical attitude, a nonchalance, where I know this is just for fun and I want to play well and I want to win, but it isn't the worst thing in the world if I don't. And I think that attitude has led to some sloppiness on my part. It sets me up for failure. I am not thinking as much about individual turn cycles and my overall plan in every matchup as I should. And perfect practice makes perfect, where imperfect practice makes for imperfect results. And I really need to start focusing up on every game I play. If I'm in the O2 bracket of my weekly armory, I'm still playing for that Pro Tour win. If I'm playing a random game on Talishar on my lunch break for my day job, that's my Pro Tour winning in. This may end up being more mentally taxing, but ultimately will be better for my game and will train me to start thinking about every turn I make in the level of importance that ultimately those turns will deserve as I'm sitting down for my Pro Tour winning in or trying to come in first at Nationals. That was my weekend. If you have never been to a calling before or one of these larger convention-style events, I highly, highly recommend it. To my knowledge, the next sort of quote-unquote local event that I will be at of this magnitude is the Nationals in Minneapolis. If you're a local, if you can make it out there, go. There are going to be vendors. There are going to be artists signing cards. There are going to be a ton of side events. Presumably, there will be some fun promos to win. I don't know that James White will be there, but there will be people to meet. There will be things to do. There will be so many opportunities to play the game that we all love. It's a ton of fun. I'll be there. If you see me, come up and say hi. I had a lot of that over this last weekend. Met some viewers, took some pictures, was a ton of fun. Big shout out to patron Peng Jun. He has his own YouTube channel, I Want a Cold Foil Frostbite, playing the pick a card, any card game. It was incredible. But I had a lot of fun, and despite that poor calling performance, I really did enjoy myself, and I'm really just fired up to keep playing, keep improving, get ready for ProQuest, win some shiny cardboard, and more than anything, I'm excited to compete in nationals, and I'm really shooting to do well. So, with all that being said, I will be back tomorrow with more of the traditional Daily Fab gameplay, and hopefully moving forward, you can all expect a higher level of gameplay analysis, of competency, because I've been slipping a bit lately, and I will be taking this way more seriously moving forward. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it. If you were at the calling in Los Angeles, I really hope you enjoyed yourself. If so, be sure to assault and batter that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback. If you haven't already done so, please consider a subscription to my channel. It's free, it helps me out, but no matter what you do, I will see you back here tomorrow for more Daily Fab gameplay. And until then, take care.